Hi everyone! We're excited to have your team joining us today and that so many of you have an interest in MongoDB Atlas. My name is Emma and I'd be happy to show you around Atlas today. First, we'll get started with a brief introduction and then we'll jump right into a little bit of a demo. So what is MongoDB Atlas? It starts with MongoDB, the database. Our intuitive and flexible data model makes it easy for developers to build new applications and iterate on existing applications because they can think about their data the same way they think about their code. Our expressive query language allows teams to ask a wide range of questions of their data, making it suitable for nearly any workload across an organization. This is why we're able to say that MongoDB is a general-purpose database versus other databases that are a little less flexible. With MongoDB Atlas, we delivered the database as a fully managed cloud service in top regions across AWS, GCP, and Azure. MongoDB Atlas is the core of MongoDB Cloud. So with Atlas, the entire database lifecycle is fully managed. That means continuous availability, monitoring, backup, automation, and upgrades. We'll take care of all of that for the customers. Atlas comes with defaults that ensure data security and makes it very easy for users to turn on additional optional security features for further peace of mind. Atlas comes equipped with what we're calling autopilot features, such as autoscale, index suggestions, and schema suggestions. This helps our customers optimize their resource usage as well as the usage of their database with minimal or no effort on their part. So taking a bit of a deeper dive into the Atlas features, we'll start with self-service and Elastic. So on Atlas, you can deploy your cluster in minutes. Once the cluster is created, users can modify cluster configuration changes with minimal or no downtime, depending on what configuration changes you make. On our dedicated tiers, major version upgrades and other quick configuration changes typically only require a few clicks to deploy. On the other hand, things like minor version upgrades, security patches, and bug fixes are all automated, and these can be fit into a user-defined maintenance window on the project level. So any clusters within that project will have maintenance at whatever time you define. We also offer automated scaling for storage capacity and cluster tier scaling when average CPU or memory utilization exceeds 75% for an hour. Atlas also offers an API on both the organization and project levels for programmatic control. Clusters can be deployed in all major regions across AWS, GCP, and Azure. So every cluster is deployed as at least a 3-node replica set with auto-healing functionality. This is also provisioned across multiple availability zones and fault domains. So upon configuring a cluster, you have the opportunity to set up what we call a global cluster. And this allows you to deploy across multiple regions for even better reliability and fast and responsive access. So moving on to some of our security features. Let's see, Atlas is highly secure by default, offering network isolation in your own VPC or via private endpoint. We also offer role-based access controls in the UI to allow you to easily authorize database users. At the organization level, you can force all users to log in with MFA, or you may be interested in implementing federated authentication for your organization. As far as data security, we offer end-to-end encryption. So encryption in transit uses TLS and SSL. Encryption at rest uses encrypted storage volumes. Some of our optional security features include encryption key management, where you can bring your own keys, granular database auditing, and LDAP integration. As far as uptime guarantees, Atlas provides an uptime SLA of 99.995% for all production-sized M30 or higher instances. Should the primary node fail, election and a failover happen automatically within a second or two. Moving on to our monitoring, Atlas offers optimized dashboards, which displays dozens of historical metrics, allowing you to deep dive when you need to with minimal effort. You can configure your own alerts to trigger when the metrics you're watching go outside of the bounds of the thresholds that you set. So if you'd like, you can integrate these alerts with channels that you may already be using, such as Slack, Datadog, or PagerDuty, among other integrations we offer. Our real-time performance panel will allow you to see what's happening to your database in real time. So this will allow you to see things like operations, network, hottest collections, long-running queries. You even have the option to kill long-running queries from right in the performance panel. Another cool feature is our performance advisor. This automatically analyzes your workload and recommends indexes to help improve performance. Finally, the Data Explorer. This is going to be the collections button in Atlas, and this allows your team to perform full CRUD operations against your database from within the Atlas UI. So this is where you would go to implement the suggestions that Performance Advisor may recommend, like index suggestions. Let's see, what else? Moving along to the backup. Cloud Backup option offers affordable snapshot-based backups. So snapshots are taken according to the backup policy you set, which can be hourly, daily, weekly, monthly. These snapshots are stored in the same regions as your database and retained according to the policy you set. You can restore data from your production databases into different projects within Atlas. Different regions, different permissions. This is quickly and easily restore from one cluster to another. A lot of people use this to easily spin up dev, test, or QA environments to accelerate any projects that they're working on. Let's see, moving on to our application development services. Atlas integrates seamlessly with built-in data access, data movement, and data manipulation services that make it easy to leverage the underlying data when building applications. These are services such as triggers, functions, GraphQL, data access controls, and more, which are now part of MongoDB Realm. All right, now we're going to get into the demo in just a second. I'd be happy to show you around Atlas a little bit and deploy a new cluster. I'll show you how easy that can be. All right, so let me just switch over to a project here. Okay, so here is my Atlas organization named Atlas Demo. I'm on the projects page. I currently have a project called Sandbox. I'll go ahead and start a new project for this demo. I'll name it Demo. Next, I'll go ahead and just create the project without adding any extra users. Okay, so right away you're presented with a screen where you can build your first cluster. I'm going to go ahead and click Build a Cluster. This is just a path to kind of help you choose which cluster to create. This is where you can find the dedicated multi-cloud, multi-region clusters, the dedicated clusters, and shared clusters. The shared clusters are our M0 to M5 instances, which can run anywhere from totally free to up to about $10 to $15 a month. They're great for, learning Atlas, getting used to the environment, but we do not recommend those for our production instances. For the purpose of this demo, I'll just go ahead and go with the dedicated clusters here. All right, so this is our cluster builder page. At the top here, you can see all the cloud providers that we offer. We have AWS, Google Cloud, and Azure. For this demo, I'll go ahead and click AWS. These are the regions. I'll go ahead and select Northern Virginia. This is a recommended region, which means it'll be deployed across 3 availability zones. Any regions that are not recommended are still deployed across 2 availability zones. But I'll go ahead and select this. Scrolling down is where you can select the cluster tier size. I'm going to go ahead and stick with an M10 cluster. Here is where the cluster tier scaling is enabled, if I'd like that. So that's where the CPU and memory utilization would be tracked. So if it reaches that 75% utilization, it'll scale up to the maximum cluster tier size that you set. So I'll go ahead and do M30. And it cannot scale down below the M10. If I had chosen M20, M30, I could scale it back down to at least an M10. Okay, so scrolling back up a little bit, this is also where you can see different specifications of the cluster tier size. You've got the RAM, storage, CPU, and the base price. As you make any changes, say I wanted to scale storage up a little bit before I deploy, you can see the cost on the bottom going back up a little bit. If you hover over it, you'll see the monthly estimate. So this includes all 3 nodes that I'm going to be deploying. The monthly estimate is about $69.70 a month, or 10 cents an hour. Scrolling down, I could see the IOPS available that'll have 1,500 max connections and some network performance information. We'll scroll down a little bit further. I'll open the additional settings here. And you can select the major version of your cluster. So I'm going to go with 4.4. Turn backup on. We're not going to shard this today, and this is where I can select my cluster name. So I'm going to do Atlas Demo. Let's see if I can spell that correctly. Okay, and it's as simple as that. We'll go ahead and create the cluster. So this usually takes about 7 to 10 minutes to deploy. As soon as you do any configuration changes within the cluster, you'll see this blue banner appear on the top of the screen, kind of letting you know what it's working on. At the same time, if you do want to see any of these changes later, you can go over to your project activity feed. It's right here. You can see that the project was created, I joined the project, and that the cluster was created. As it finishes deploying, some new information will show up in this activity feed. All right, so let's go ahead and add some database users. So these are the users that you'll be using to connect to your cluster. You can add new database user here. So let's see. Our authentication methods can be passwords, certificates, or AWS IAM users. So I'm just gonna go with this. We'll go ahead and copy that. Auto-generate a secure password. The database user privileges I'd like for this user is Atlas admin. If you'd like, you can restrict the user to specific clusters. I'm going to go ahead and let this user have access to every cluster within my project. So I'm just going to keep this toggled off. And if I wanted the temporary user, I could toggle this to on. That can be up to, the user could have access from anywhere from 6 hours, 1 day, 1 week, whatever you want to define. But I'm just going to go ahead and leave the defaults there and add user. For network access, you're going to want to add an IP whitelist, a peering connection, or a private endpoint to be able to connect. So I'm going to go ahead and right now I'll allow access from anywhere just because this is a demo for testing purposes. We do not recommend opening, your access list in a production environment. So go ahead and add that. Okay, going back to my cluster, you can see that it's still being created. So what I'm going to do is go to a cluster that has already been deployed so I can show you around a little bit. I'll go back to the organization overview of the projects. Okay, so we had just created demo. I had a sandbox project ready to go for this where I have, I believe, another M10 cluster deployed. So this is what it looks like when it's ready to go. You'll see a connect option, metrics, collections, which is the data explorer, and some of the top metrics that you want a quick view of. So starting with the connect button, or actually what I'm going to do first is go ahead and load some sample data into here so we can play around a little bit. So to do that, you click on the ellipsis right here, and we'll go ahead and load sample data sets. This is also where you'll find the options to edit your configuration, command line tools, migrating data. You can view access history, download your logs, test failover, pause cluster, or terminate it. We'll go ahead and load the sample data set. It gives you an idea of the size, load sample. Okay, so that usually takes about a minute. In that time, I'll show you how to connect. So once your cluster is ready to go, you have your database user and your network access set up. You can click connect. Here, I hadn't set it up in the page yet. So the connect modal will tell me, hey, you can't connect yet. You'll have to set this up. So add my current IP, Emma, create that. Okay, so everything's ready to connect. We'll choose a connection method. So here you're presented with a couple different options. You can have a connection string to connect to the MongoDB shell, your application, MongoDB Compass, or if you had the BI connector enabled, there's also connection options for that. I'll show you one for connecting your application. So here is where you can select your driver and your version. Say I was using Python and let's say 3.6 or later. It'll give you your connection string right away. So if you'd like, you could include the full driver example, go ahead and copy that, and then paste that into your application to get connected. So go back, it'd be the same for the shell. If you don't have the Mongo shell installed, they'll give you some prompts to be able to install it. If you do have it installed, you can click here, select your current Mongo shell version, going all the way back to 3.4, and it'll give you your connection string. Okay, so we'll close this out. Taking a look at the metrics, you click the metrics button here. It gives you an overview of all 3 nodes. So we've got the primary and 2 secondaries. Right now, the default view starts with network. You've got op counters, op log, query targeting, connections, disk IOPS, normalized system CPU, disk space, a few other metrics, storage. If you'd like, you can add a few more metrics, such as process CPU or cache usage, replication lag. You can really toggle anything you prefer here. If you'd like, you can, if you want to send some of the data to your team, somebody that might not be an Atlas user, you can go ahead and expand this out. It's easier to take screenshots. You can send it, let's see, using the chart permalink. Yeah, so here's like more of a granular view. If you'd like, you can select any time frame. We'll say 48 hours, whichever date and time you'd prefer. Let's see, over here, we talked about the performance advisor a little earlier. This is where your performance is analyzed. We just added data to this cluster, so that it's not going to have any index recommendations right now. But this is where you'd find them if you did. Once in a while, you might get something called a query targeting alert that would show up in both your project activity feed and the alerts page. If that happens, it may suggest that you go visit the performance advisor to see any suggested indexes or things like that. So it'll point you, a lot of the alerts will point you to where in Atlas you should go look. in the event that you had an alert that you wanted to check, you would go to View Project Alerts over here on the top navigation. This is where you'll find open alerts, closed alerts, and also where you can set different alerts. So these are the defaults. We have everything from billing alerts to different host types. Here's the query targeting that I mentioned. Couple other things like replica set has no primary, or the CPU is going above 95%. Right now these are defaulted to be sent to the project owner. Say I wanted to change any of these, you can go to the little ellipsis right here, click edit. And this is where you can see all the other alerts. Maybe I want this to go to the cluster manager if I had one, or if I had the Slack integration set up, I could have it sent there. So I'd go ahead and save that. I'll go ahead and close that out. All right, so I believe that the sample data should be loaded right now. While we're here, I'm just gonna go ahead and check back on the other cluster. So demo. Yeah, okay, so 3 of 3 servers are complete. So this cluster should almost be ready any moment. Can't quite click connect yet, but I can go back to my activity feed over here and see that we had a network permission added, a user was added, new cluster was created. Go back up here. That should be finished in a moment. I'll go back to my project page to jump back to the other cluster. Go back to Sandbox. Okay, so the sample data set successfully loaded. We'll go ahead and access the Data Explorer to kind of see what we've got here. So on the left, you can see a list of databases, and then nested under those are the collections. If I wanted to, I can go ahead and create a new one. So I'll do demo, test, create. And it's just that easy to add data into the Data Explorer. This is also where you'd see index usage. I don't believe it would. Oh, okay, so it does have some historical data in here. Just a little bit because we just created this, but it does show how often the index is used, the size, properties. If I wanted to drop the index, I could go ahead and do it from right inside the Data Explorer. This is also where you could find schema suggestions, let's see, and the aggregation pipeline. Okay, so this is where we can start building in the aggregation pipeline. You can see I have a list of my databases to the left, just like it was in the previous screens, and collections nested again. Here's some sample Airbnb data that was loaded with the sample data set. Let's see, so maybe I wanted to see how many listings are apartments available in somewhere like Barcelona. Let's see, let me just copy this. Okay, so I'm gonna scroll down, select dollar match, put my query here. Great. And then if I wanted the count, I'll scroll down, add another stage, select count, all right, so we've got the number of 534. Okay, so as you can see on the right, each pipeline builder provides a sample output for the aggregation query. So once you're finished with this pipeline, you can go ahead and export the code to your preferred language and execute it in your application. So we'll scroll up here, export pipeline to code language. Okay, so here is my pipeline. Here's what I want to export. So you have the option of exporting to Java, Node, C#, or Python. I'll stick with Python here. If you'd like, you can include import statements or include the driver syntax, or both. So I'll go ahead and include the driver syntax, copy this, and then you can go ahead and execute that in your application. So we'll close that. Another feature I wanted to show you is called MongoDB charts. And this is a fast and easy way to create visualizations of your MongoDB data. So we'll use some of the same Airbnb sample data to show you what we can do with that. So at the top level navigation here, you'll see Atlas, Realm, and Charts. We'll go ahead and click Charts. Go ahead and activate that. Might take about a minute here. All right. So the first thing we're going to want to do is import a data source. And I'll go ahead and import that sample data. So I'll go to the left navigation, select data sources. All right. Looks like it's in there. Can't edit these right now. So let's go back to the dashboard. Emma's dashboard. All right, we're gonna add a chart. So we can enter a title of the chart. We'll just do testing Airbnb data. All right, so we'll go ahead and choose our data source. All right, cool. It looks like this is the movies. Sample mode. We'll go ahead and testing movies data. Okay, so over here we can choose our chart type. Today I'm gonna do a donut chart. So I'll select circular and then donut. Okay, so let's say I wanted to count the number of countries that we have this movie data in. I'll go ahead and use the encoding fields here. I can drag countries to the label. Go ahead and put the underscore ID here, and we'll see if it starts. Oh, let's see. All right, cool. So we've got a little bit of data in here. On the left, on the right, you'll see a bit of a legend. You can hover over the chart for any information you're looking for. If you'd like, you can enter a description and then go ahead and save it. Okay, so that's charts. It's pretty powerful. You can do, if we go back here and go to, okay, yeah. You can create as many charts as you'd like here. Up here is where you can edit title, description, duplicate the dashboard, delete it. There's also user permissions within charts itself, which are a little different than the Atlas permissions. So we can go back to the homepage, going back to the clusters through the project page, and demo the cluster should be created. So yeah, it probably took about 10 minutes to get that up and running. Other small things that might be helpful are, let's see, over here is all the project level settings. So you can go to project settings. This is also where you can create a support ticket if you needed to, or create your integrations. So this is all the integrations that we currently have. We have everything from IAM role access, PagerDuty, Slack, Sumo Logic, a lot of things to integrate with both the alerts and our metrics monitoring. A project owner can set up the configuration and then go ahead and edit the alerts that they'd like to add to those integrations. Looking at different project settings that we have, you'll see the project ID here, project name. If you want to edit this at any time, you can feel free to do so. Select your project time zone. Users also have their individual time zones. So if I invited someone from my development team to my project, they can select their own time zone preferences, especially if they're in a different location than I am. Things like the activity feed and metrics would be in their preferred time. This is where you can also set the preferred cluster maintenance start time. So things that I mentioned earlier, like the MongoDB minor version upgrades, some automation upgrades, security patching, things like that. You can go ahead and toggle that on. I'd like mine set for, let's say, Sunday mornings at 3 a.m. You also have the option, once this is set, to defer maintenance for a week. Say that Sunday morning at 3 a.m. something comes up. I know I'm going to have something the next day. I can go ahead and automatically defer maintenance right away, so it's pushed back to the next maintenance window. You also have the option of toggling on or off the real-time performance panel, Data Explorer, and the Performance Advisor. All right, and then if I wanted to delete the project, you can do that there. Keep in mind that deleting a project, you'd have to delete the clusters ahead of time. If you do ever decide to terminate a cluster, all the backups are terminated with it, so please be sure to download any backups you may need before doing that. If you'd like to pause a cluster, say this is just a development cluster and I don't need it running 24/7, I can go ahead and save some money by pausing it. So right here it'll say the active cost is 10 cents an hour. When it's paused, it's 0.028 cents an hour, so you'll be significantly saving a little bit there. Go ahead and pause it. And again, you'll see the banner pop up showing that that cluster is shutting down. When you're ready to unpause it, it's as easy as just clicking resume, and it'll be similar to deploying a cluster. It'll take about 10 minutes to just pop back up, and you'll have all your data in there, everything ready to go. And I believe that's the conclusion of the demo. Thank you again for being here. I enjoyed showing you around Atlas, and I hope that you enjoy it as much as we do. Thanks again. Bye.